Imagine a scene you've probably lived. A man sits alone at his computer late into the evening, convincing himself he's being productive. His browser is chaos. 15 tabs open. A business concept he's researching, a job posting he's considering, an online course he might purchase, a conversation thread demanding his attention, a video playing in the background. He labels this behavior as strategic flexibility, keeping doors open, maintaining options. But strip away the justification, and the truth is simpler and sharper. He's not free. He's just perpetually available. The modern world doesn't enslave you with visible chains. It enslaves you with exits. 1,000 doorways you can walk through the instant discomfort arrives. A distraction when the work gets hard. A new plan when the current one stalls. A new identity when the old one demands too much. An excuse that sounds intelligent enough to protect your ego. And every single time you walk through one of those exits, you reset your progress to 0. There's a question you ask yourself constantly, even if you never speak it aloud. How do people maintain consistency over years, not just days or weeks? The answer isn't motivation. Motivation is an emotion, and emotions fluctuate with circumstances. The answer isn't willpower. Willpower is a finite resource that depletes under pressure. The answer isn't some magical morning routine or productivity hack. The answer is necessity. The answer is removing your ability to escape. Here's the core truth most men avoid because it burns when you accept it. Freedom is not the ultimate goal. Controlled limitation is. The men who build genuine wealth aren't the ones with the most options. They're the men who systematically remove their exits until output becomes inevitable. Most men believe the seductive illusion that more options equal more power. That illusion is expensive. It makes you feel secure while it quietly destroys your capacity to complete anything meaningful. What I'm going to do is dismantle that illusion and replace it with a disciplined system built on Machiavellian realism, leverage, consequence, stability, reputation. The kind of power that survives pressure instead of collapsing under it. And there are 3 things you will understand completely before we finish. Why options systematically kill consistency. How to remove exits without becoming reckless or self-destructive. And why people suddenly start respecting you only after you become impossible to move. Let me show you how this operates in actual life. There was a man we'll call Daniel. Everyone described him as high potential, smart, composed, capable. The kind of employee managers like to keep close. Not because they want him to succeed independently, but because they want him to remain useful. Daniel took pride in being reliable. He responded to messages immediately. He joined additional calls without being asked. He helped solve problems that were never his responsibility. He was rewarded with praise, not power. He was told he was essential, then treated as completely replaceable. One afternoon, his manager called him into a meeting. The manager smiled warmly and spoke with careful affection. He offered a deal without stating it explicitly. Keep performing at this level, and next quarter we'll discuss promotion. Daniel felt relief wash over him. He interpreted this as progress. He didn't recognize the trap being set. The promise wasn't a ladder. It was a leash. The moment Daniel felt relief, his output became optional. And this is how modern control operates, not by forcing you to fail, but by giving you just enough comfort to stop pushing. It's not cruelty, it's structure. Your manager doesn't need to hate you to keep you small. He only needs you to remain available. Machiavelli would understand this structure immediately. Dependence makes you controllable. Independence requires you to construct your own necessity. Daniel started a side project quietly. He told himself he was being strategic. Low risk, no pressure. A few hours per week. He kept it private because privacy felt safe. But safety wasn't what he needed. He needed commitment. He needed consequence. His manager noticed subtle changes. Daniel remained polite, still dependable, but slightly less available. That's all it takes. When someone senses you might become less controllable, they don't always attack you directly. They often reward you with responsibilities that sound important, but carry no actual authority. The manager assigned Daniel more tasks, more meetings, more ownership in name only. Daniel accepted it because it felt like respect. Daniel traded his future for a compliment. This is a mistake men make constantly. They confuse honor with power. They confuse being needed with being valued. And they make this mistake because it protects the ego. If you're needed, you can call yourself important. You can avoid the harder question. Are you building anything that survives without their permission? Months passed. The side project remained a draft document. Daniel said he was waiting for the right time. That sentence is poison. It sounds mature. It sounds patient. But it's usually fear wearing formal clothing. Then something happened that stabbed him awake. A coworker, less talented but more decisive, launched something mediocre. Not brilliant, not perfect, just real. The coworker gained attention, momentum, and valuable contacts. Daniel felt heat rising in his chest. Not jealousy exactly, recognition. He'd had the same idea. He even had superior execution plans. But he kept his exits open. He kept his safety intact. He kept his pride protected. Output belongs to the man who cannot escape himself. Daniel tried to fix it the way modern men are trained to fix everything. He purchased courses. He took extensive notes. He reorganized his calendar with color coding. He talked about locking in. He made plans to create better plans. It felt like progress because it generated motion without risk. But he never removed the exits. His phone stayed within reach. Social invitations stayed open. He maintained the comfortable throne of a stable life. When discomfort arrived, he negotiated with himself. And negotiation is how discipline dies. Every time you negotiate with yourself, you teach yourself that your word carries no weight. Then life removed his exits for him. A restructuring hit the company. Daniel's entire department was eliminated. The manager who had praised him didn't fight for his position, not because the manager was evil, but because Daniel was never an asset. He was an instrument. And instruments get replaced when budgets tighten. Daniel remained calm for approximately 1 day. Then panic arrived. No applause, no schedule, no paycheck certainty, just empty time and his own mind. This is where many men collapse because they never built internal authority. They borrowed authority from external structure. In the silence, Daniel discovered the real enemy wasn't failure. It was options. Daniel made a decision that appeared extreme to everyone else, but was actually surgical. He reduced spending aggressively. He sold possessions that served as distractions. He deleted social media applications. He set a public deadline. He invested money into his project. Not because money is magical, but because loss creates clarity. He made quitting expensive. Something strange happened. His mind stopped bargaining. When you remove exits, the brain stops searching for escape routes and starts searching for solutions. The moment retreat became costly, Daniel became consistent. Several weeks later, Daniel was different. Not happier, not softer, sharper, more predictable to himself. He shipped work. He improved incrementally. He built momentum. And then the world did what it always does. People returned. Friends who had been busy suddenly had time. The manager even messaged him, polite and warm, as if nothing had happened. Daniel read the message once and returned to his work. Not out of bitterness, out of structure. He finally understood the law of modern life. If you keep exits open, you stay available for other people's plans. The final test isn't building wealth. The final test is refusing comfort when it returns, offering itself. Now we arrive at the core principle, because I want you to see your own life without the comfortable lies. Most men cannot maintain consistency long-term for one reason. Their life is constructed like a hotel. They can check out whenever discomfort arrives. They tell themselves options make them safer. That's the illusion. Options don't make you safer. They make you psychologically dishonest because the exit isn't there for genuine emergencies. It's there to protect your ego from a verdict. If you never fully commit, you never fully fail. If you never fully fail, you never have to accept the truth about your actual capability. This is why men collect options, not because they're ambitious, but because they're afraid to be measured. Machiavelli had a harsh respect for reality. He understood that the world doesn't reward good intentions. It rewards effective action under pressure. He also understood that fortune is not your friend. It's a force that punishes hesitation. Fortune is like a woman, Machiavelli wrote. She favors the bold. Fortune is not predictable or fair. It moves and it tests you. The man who waits for perfect certainty before acting becomes a servant of chance. If you require complete clarity before moving, you're training yourself to obey fear. Commit while information is incomplete, but structure the risk intelligently. If you want consistency, you must systematically remove the exits that allow your fear to renegotiate your goals. Here's the framework you need: the exit taxonomy. There are 4 categories of exits that quietly kill output. First, digital exits. The dopamine replacement systems, feeds, scrolling, constant novelty. These aren't entertainment. They're alternative masters that compete with your work. They take your attention, then they take your standards. You start requiring stimulation just to sit still. And a man who cannot sit still cannot build anything serious. Second, social exits. Availability, plans, endless messaging, unplanned conversations that steal your prime hours and leave you with exhausted leftovers. This is the polite prison. You don't want to disappoint anyone, so you disappoint your future. You trade your best hours for other people's comfort and call it being a good man. Third, identity exits, the most dangerous category. I'm still figuring it out. I'm multi-passionate. I could do anything. That's not identity. That's avoidance. Freedom is movement. Power is direction. Most men say they'll lock in when they have freedom. That's backwards. Freedom reveals who you are without enforcement. If you cannot control a free day, you will not control a free life. This is why Machiavelli was blunt about reliability. People don't act consistently because they love the goal. They act consistently because consequences are stable. It is much safer to be feared than loved, if one must choose between the two. Affection is unstable. Fear of consequence is reliable. Stable behavior comes from stable consequences. This isn't about terror. This is about non-negotiable cost. If you want consistency, stop relying on love of the goal. Build fear of the cost. Deadlines, public commitments, financial stakes, reputation. If nothing is at stake, your discipline will always be negotiable. Here's the doctrine: controlled limitation. You don't need more options. You need fewer, harder rules. One primary vehicle for 12 to 24 months. Not 5 projects. One output metric that cannot be argued with. Sales calls made, products shipped, pages written, demos built. Choose a number you can observe. One daily window that is sacred. Deep work. No messages, no feeds, no negotiations. And I need you to understand this before you attempt to apply it. If your constraints are vague, you will renegotiate them. If they're emotional, you will rebel against them. Make them mechanical, like laws. Not to punish yourself, but to protect the part of you that actually wants to win. Many men hear this and immediately flinch because they think constraint means prison. They think rules mean loss. They think limitation means a smaller life. No, limitation is what gives you a life that actually moves. Look at the men you respect, the ones who built something real. They're not the men with the most freedom. They're the men with the most structure. They're predictable to themselves. And that predictability is what creates trust, momentum, and wealth. Now I'm going to make this practical, because philosophy without mechanism is just entertainment. Here's how you remove exits without turning your life into chaos. First, you must understand a brutal law. Your environment will always be stronger than your intention. If you keep an exit within reach, you will use it when pain arrives. Not because you're weak, because you're human. Your brain is designed to conserve energy and escape discomfort. So stop arguing with biology. Design around it. Digital exits first. If your phone is within arm's reach during deep work, you're not serious. Put it in another room. If you cannot do that, you don't control your life. Something else does. Disable notifications. Remove the applications that feed your nervous system with novelty. Keep one designated place for communication and decide when you enter it. You're not becoming a monk. You're removing a trap. Social exits next. Your availability is not kindness. It's leakage. Every time you respond instantly, every time you agree without thinking, you teach people that your time is cheap. And then they treat it that way. You need a rule for social access, not a feeling. A rule. For example, no social plans Monday through Thursday. Or no phone calls before your deep work window completes. Or messages answered twice daily, not constantly. When people protest, don't defend. Don't explain. Just repeat the schedule. The man who explains too much is negotiating his authority. Identity exits. This one is the hardest because it feels like potential. It feels like possibility. But it's usually fear. If you keep saying you're still figuring it out, you're giving yourself permission to avoid the verdict. You're refusing to be measured. That's why it feels safe. Here's your rule. Pick one identity for the next year and act as if it's final. Writer, builder, operator, closer, creator, athlete, whatever fits your vehicle. Choose it and stop entertaining alternatives. You can evolve later, but you cannot evolve from a life you never commit to. Comfort exits last. Comfort is not evil. Comfort is just dangerous when it becomes your default reward. If your stress response is spending, scrolling, binge-watching, junk food, or endless stimulation, you're training yourself to sedate instead of solve. Replace comfort exits with controlled recovery. Sleep, training, walking, reading. Quiet time that restores you without stealing your ambition. That's the difference between recovery and escape. Now, removing exits is only half the system. The second half is what Machiavelli understood better than almost anyone. Stakes. Men change when the cost becomes real. If the cost is vague, the behavior stays vague. So you need to build consequence, not to punish yourself, but to create gravity. Think about Daniel again. He didn't become consistent because he suddenly believed in himself. He became consistent because quitting became painful. That's the engine. You're going to build your own version of that engine, but controlled. Here are 3 types of stakes you can use. Financial stake. Put money on the line in a way that hurts but doesn't destroy you. Pay for coaching. Commit to a subscription you must earn back through output. Or create a penalty system where you donate to a cause you dislike if you miss your weekly target. The point isn't the money. The point is that the brain respects loss. Public stake. Tell a small group of men you respect what you will ship and when. Not your dreams. Your deliverable, a date, a number, a clear artifact. Then report weekly. Accountability only works when the audience matters. If you select people you don't respect, you will ignore them. Reputation stake. This is the strongest one. Tie your identity to output, not to being intelligent, not to being talented, but to shipping. When people know you as the man who delivers, you protect that reputation like territory. And you become consistent because inconsistency would cost your status. This is where Machiavelli's realism lands. People behave according to incentives and consequences, so design incentives and consequences that point in the direction you want. Now we bridge this to wealth, because many men stay stuck in self-mastery without converting it into leverage. Wealth is not built by thinking about money. Wealth is built by controlling output until the market is forced to notice you. Here's the simplest money mechanism in the world. Pick a vehicle where output is visible. Create output on a schedule. Improve through feedback. Turn that into an offer. Sell the offer. Repeat until your skill and reputation compound. Most men fail at this because they keep exits. They're always preparing, always researching, always refining. They're in love with the feeling of progress and afraid of exposure. Exposure is where money lives. If you're a creator, output is content shipped. Consistency creates distribution. Distribution creates audience. Audience creates offers. If you're a builder, output is demonstrations shipped. Demonstrations create proof. Proof creates conversations. Conversations create contracts. If you're a service operator, output is outreach and delivery. Outreach creates leads. Delivery creates referrals. Referrals create pricing power. No magic, no mystery, just output under constraint. Let me give you a tight operating system you can actually run. Step 1. One vehicle for 12 months. You're not allowed to select 5. You're not allowed to maintain backups. If you do, you're not choosing. You're hedging. And hedging kills intensity. Step 2. One metric. Choose one number that defines progress. Weekly revenue. Weekly clients contacted. Weekly pages written. Weekly videos posted. Weekly workouts completed. One number. If you have 3 metrics, you'll select the one that makes you feel best and avoid the one that makes you grow. Step 3. One daily deep work window. Same time every day. Protect it like property. Nothing enters it. Not people, not messages, not news, not your mood. When you finish the window, you earn the right to be human again. You can answer messages, you can handle life, but you don't touch life before you touch your mission. Step 4. Weekly ship day. 1 day per week where you ship something public. Publish, send, launch, allow. You're training your nervous system to stop hiding. Step 5. Stakes. Pick one stake that makes you uncomfortable. Financial, public, or reputation. Add it to the system and maintain it for 30 days. Now I'm going to warn you about the moment that destroys most men. It's not the hard week. Men can endure hard weeks. It's the relief week. The week when money returns. When a client signs. When a manager praises you. When a woman texts back. When life feels soft again. That's when the exits reopen. That's when the old self whispers, "You can relax now." And this is where Machiavelli would smirk, because he understood that stability can be more dangerous than crisis. When comfort returns, you must keep the structure. You can celebrate, but you don't dissolve the rules. You can rest, but you don't reopen the exits. If you reopen them, you return to being available. And availability is the fastest path back to weakness. Now let me speak directly to the man watching who is ambitious but exhausted. You don't need a new personality. You need a new system. Your discipline is not broken. Your incentives are broken. Your consistency is not missing. Your constraints are missing. The world is not going to save you from your exits. It will sell you more exits and call them opportunities. It will give you endless content and call it knowledge. It will give you endless comfort and call it self-care. And then it will watch you remain average while you tell yourself you're capable of more. If you want to build wealth, you need a life that produces. Not when you feel inspired, not when conditions are perfect. Produces because it is designed to. Machiavelli didn't teach softness. He taught clarity. He taught that power is built by men who see the real mechanics and stop negotiating with fantasy. You can hate that truth, or you can use it. Here's your assignment. Simple, brutal, effective. Today, write down your 4 exits. Digital, social, identity, comfort. Don't justify them. Name them. Then choose one exit to remove for the next 7 days. Only one. If you attempt to remove everything at once, you will fail and call it proof that you cannot change. Remove one exit and keep the rule clean. Then choose your vehicle. Choose your metric. Choose your daily window. And build one stake. If you do that, you will feel something you may not have felt in a long time. Internal authority. The sense that your word means something again. That feeling is not motivational. It is structural. It is what happens when you remove exits, and your brain accepts that escape is not an option. You become dangerous to your old habits. You become reliable to your future. And that is where wealth begins. Not as a number, as a consequence of consistent output applied intelligently over time. If this hits you where it hurts, good. Pain is information. Use it. Now do the work. And if you want more content like this with hard truths and real systems you can apply, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.